streaming. All right. Let me check the phone and make sure that everything went according to plan.
Yeah, I got the notification.
You did?
Yeah, I
Yep.
have YouTube notifications on my phone for when people upload.
Yep. We're good. All right. So I wanted to invite you in on this because you actually know things about philosophy. And I think
Yeah.
that we could actually work on this together. So I'm going to screen share and we'll make this this graph together. It's like a spectrum of the natalism from like anti-natalism to pro-natalism, neutral-natalism in the center. And usually these charts are like less than. So let me get that started, and I'll share the screen so you
Is,
can see what I'm
is my camera on your end really, is it good or what? Because on my end, your camera is sideways.
on my end. Your camera is sideways.
Oh, that better?
Yeah.
No, because when you have it like this, it's not like widescreen.
My yours is not showing up as widescreen. It's like it's vertical, like, so there's no like depth.
Yeah, it's like it should be like this, but then it has you sideways.
All right. So, these usually start off with like, a less than. I'm gonna start it off with less than. It's not gonna be perfect here. All right. So, we're gonna say like this is the center, and then here is. I'm trying to get it straight. It doesn't really look straight to me, but that's what the computer says. All right, so what this is I don't want 48. We'll go 28. No, 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 no. 28 looks too big, so maybe 20. All right, so this is going to be at this end. And then down here at this end, of course, we're going to have that's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect, I guess. It's just to illustrate what this is now. And then here in the center, this is where I'm going to put, the neutral natalist perspective. And then over here is going to be we'll say this is pro-natalist perspective. And over here is the anti-natalist perspective. Now, what I wanted to do, like over here, I'm going to change it to red. And,
like anti-natalism is red, or
no, this is going to be more like categorical. Like pro-natalist, you could definitely put the theists in this category. And
yeah,
I mean, they're pro-life is their whole gimmick. Anti-abortion, that kind of thing. So the theist perspective is probably definitely in the pro-natalist category. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in that category that would be considered like pro-natalist. There is a group of I don't remember the name of that group. They were going against the anti-natalist nihilists. That was something different, but they were all a bunch of theists. I can't think of anything else to put in the pro-natalist category at the moment. Can you?
I don't know. Can't think of anyone else.
This would fall like these are the Puritans. That's it.
Catholics.
Well, that falls under theists. So.
All
right, so they're definitely in the pro-natalist category. Neutral-natalist, this has to do with like bodily autonomy. Humanist, atheist probably fall into this category. Now, the thing that I find interesting is that, like, in a way, like, I would say that MGTOWs are not necessarily neutral natalists, but they're not anti-natalists either, but they're very close to that kind of category because of the idea of, not, being with a woman anymore, being like sort of celibate. Like, so celibacy would like fall somewhere over there where it's maybe not necessarily neutral, not necessarily pro, but not like 100% anti, but not engaging in it as well. So I would say, you know, that's close to anti-natalist, but not necessarily reflective of their personal beliefs. They might be closer to neutral natalist, so I'm going to kind of put it in between. Oh, that was supposed to be black. Whatever. The people under the anti-natalist category, be like nihilism, like absolute 100% nihilism. We like everything is nothing, nothing is everything. Fuck it, throw in the towel. No life needs to exist. Falling down the eternal abyss.
Yeah.
They don't like to think of themselves that way, but that's really kind of what it is. Now, see, like I would probably be, because I'm not like I'm thinking of like I think I would probably be somewhere about here. Because while I'm for like bodily autonomy, like here I'll illustrate this on why I think that. Oops. So I'll just put um and then you have other like means of population control, like what China did. They would probably, like, you know, like how they used to only allow a certain amount of children per household, and then they would actually kill, like commit infanticide, um, particularly if the baby was a female. If you remember this in history,
Yeah, that was in my geography class actually. They was talking about that.
I think that would fall, like, because it's not 100% anti-natalist, but it's pretty close to that. So I'm gonna put that there. Oh, I didn't want that to be red. I wanted it to be black. There we go. So I think that would roughly be around there. I think that's fair. Can you think of it? Like, I'm trying to think of something that would fit between neutral natalism and pro-natalism, like something in between those two. I can think of tons of examples between neutral natalism and anti-natalism, but between pro-natalism and neutral natalism, I'm not thinking of a whole lot. Actually, I do know of one. You have sort of the you can get one in between here, and this is what I'm thinking of in that terms of things of like ethno-nationalism. Do you think that's fair? That probably goes in between neutral natalism and pro-natalism.
Yeah.
Because of things like ethno-nationalism, eugenics. Because they're really only pro-natalist when it comes to a specific group of people, but they're anti-natalist when it comes to other groups, but not like entirely anti-natalist about it, if that makes sense. Like they're pretty absolutist when it comes to the procreation of their specific group. Yeah, we could also put like anti-contraceptives.
I don't know. What did edgy intellect say about his stance on natalism?
I don't I don't remember. He had a lot to say about it. Is that basically I think his stance on antinatalism is that there's a lot of things that they don't really understand. Like when it comes to the naturalist perspective of like the biological reason for life, looking at it rationally, logically, is nothing more than to eat, drink, sleep, poop, pee, and reproduce. And that reproduce one is the sort of I gotcha, because I mean, like you think from like a naturalistic perspective, it's like living organisms, they don't really, they're compelled to reproduce. It's sort of an instinct. It's not something most other living organisms sit around and contemplate, should I or should I not. They're just kind of compelled to.
Yeah.
Under this one, you got I just thought of that one. I don't know that the anti-natalists are entirely against like sex in general.
No. To them, sex is probably nothing more than just, just just a thing to do.
So edgy intellect put in the comments section. What about uh, denatalism? And he says denatalists want to reduce population by procreating less, but not to the point of voluntary self-extinction. That might actually go like I don't that's got a little bit of antinatalism to it, but not a
I
lot.
see I see it more in between neutral natalism and pro-natalism because it's not fully um, uh, or maybe in between neutral natalism and anti-natalism, but it's not completely anti-natalist.
That's what I think it goes somewhere between antinatalism and neutral natalism.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Actually pretty close to me, where for the most part I'm neutral in that, I support bodily autonomy, a person's choice to, decide if they want to have a kid or not. And I'm but I do believe in some forms of population control, but non-invasive ones, meaning that, not as authoritarian as China's policies. That's crazy, and not to the level of eugenics and ethno-nationalism. But this can be done by pro-abortion. This is at first trimester only. The only way I could
Mhm.
possibly rationalize beyond the first trimester into the second and third trimester is if it is a significant problem for the woman giving birth. Like it could mean like the death of the female giving birth, and that might even fall into a point of a gray scale of like maybe the woman giving birth is willing to make that sacrifice, maybe she's not. But there's also other examples of like birth defects that are horrendous, where the child will live like a very painful 48 hours of just agonizing pain, and that's something that they will do an emergency abortion on, or like brain dead babies or something like that. So that's very close to right here the denatalism. So we could slide that on in here. I think. I think that's roughly about where that would go. Yeah, and edgy intellect agrees with that it would go somewhere between anti-natalism and neutral natalism. It's funny. I didn't even read the rest of the comment. We all came to the same conclusion.
So if MGTOW was there, where would the feminists be? The ultra extreme feminists.
I don't know. They're probably somewhere in this category, like somewhere around here. I don't know. Like feminists have differing opinions. Like I don't know that you could put feminism all in that same kind of. It might even go along right with the MGTOWs, like the ultra feminists. Um, Like I hate men, everybody should be lesbian sort of thing, like sort of a women going their own way. I don't think the MGTOWs necessarily engage in homosexuality, but some of the ultra feminists, I guess, do. I think that's it pretty much goes in that same sort of domain. I think most of you hear like anything between pro-natalist and neutral-natalist is probably going to come from a very conservative background. You know, appropriate, appropriate, appropriate.
Yeah.
So most of this is going to be, um, you actually, you do have, those little sort of, I don't know, people in this category might call them cafeteria Christians. But, you do have some Christians here in this category that don't agree but support bodily autonomy. Oops. So that'd probably go like right about here. I'm just gonna do this. So like this goes here. That goes there. That goes there. This goes here. That goes there. This goes here. Oh, how can we get the ephilism?
Aphilism? I mean, that's how I pronounce it.
I don't know. For all sakes and purposes, it's almost a new word.
Yeah. Ephilism, defilism.
And this is kind of one of the things that I've been trying to explain to the anti-natalist arguers. Is that really this philosophy breaks down into a spectrum. This is why you use the less than, because this is more likely to criticize procreation. So anything less than that goes towards neutral natalism, and this is less likely to criticize procreation. Anything less than that heads towards neutral natalism. It's...
Mm-hmm. But I mean, like aphilism is like pretty much a whole new word. It's like no one is really gonna know what you're talking about.
Edgy Intellect said ephilism would be 2 meters further to the left. So like over over here somewhere. At least that's my left. Maybe he's talking about over here, because I think the idea behind ephilism is to stop appropriating until you get the population down to a certain level and then eradicate it.
Yeah, like maybe down to like maybe like like the atheists are probably talking about reducing the population down to like, maybe like 25 people or maybe 100 people and then just kill them all.
Yeah, that's their stance.
And it's like that's insane. It's like how are you going to do that? Nuclear war? It's like the population will just bounce back.
So we know that there under this one there's no procreation. And I also added genocide to the ethno-nationalist, even though like that could also fall under like because these guys do that, but it could fall over here, really.
Yeah.
But most of the people that perpetuate it are not ultimately anti-natalists themselves. They just
No. They still advocate for reproduction, but only for their own personal means.
right hardcore too at that. Like
Yeah.
overpopulating
Even
their group.
even more hardcore than the Christians.
So, these guys, these anti-natalist guys, they're like, I'm 100% correct, but you have this vast spectrum, and if I would think if it's truly objective, um,
Would would like would Final Fantasy like have arguments with other anti-natalists, and even a lot of them, like you said, they agree with Imenham.
yeah, well, he's an anti-natalist.
Yeah.
What I find interesting is that they will subscribe people in this category as being the nihilist, that they are um the Gothic Lothier wants to join the chat. So I can do that. We're gonna go to infinity mode here for a second. Maybe not. Here we go.
Well, I thought the stream was just going to be you and I.
I did too. Now he wants to join. Call in. There you go. Okay, hold on, hold on. I'm gonna do this. We'll see what he has to say. I added him. There, I added.
I'm at work right now, guys. You don't need me on the phone right here. So I'm just gonna put you on. Yeah, I was seeing if you guys want to put. I was just a few minutes. Like, I'm at work, unfortunately. So, what's up with you guys? I had to go back to work after about like 2 days of DC, and nothing really happened besides fucking cops everywhere. Nothing happened.
Yeah, see, like, well, we're talking about natalism, you know, the spectrum of natalism from pro to anti to neutral in the middle. And Chigmakin put his 2 cents in as an ethno-nationalist, saying ethno-nationalists argue for stable birth rates. Countries collapse when you don't have enough workers to support the economy. That's the main excuse used for immigration. So yeah,
the issue with immigration is I'm for legal immigration, not illegal immigration, and he wants this ethno-state kind of ideology. And well, I know he has like to argue on my comment section as well. But
I think where I put him on the scale, or the ethno-nationalists on the scale, is pretty accurate then for that. Honestly, I mean,
but, you know,
I got him right.
Because the whole point of this live stream is to make a response to the Ethelists and Jinx's comment section.
well, my opinion. I mean, I'm a bit of a nationalist, but not ethno-nationalist. I'm more of a nationalist to the point I don't give a care what race you are, as long as you're dedicated to the rights of the liberty of America. Well, then it doesn't matter what fucking skin color you are. You could be purple, but all I care.
That's political, though. We're not making political arguments. We're
No.
making arguments on the philosophical positions of natalism.
The concept of natalism, anti-natalism, pro-natalism is purely philosophical. It has nothing to do with anything political.
Okay, I didn't know what you were talking about at first. I was kind of like, what the heck are you? What's up with this chick Nick? And you talk about like. You mentioned chick Nick, and then I'm like, oh god, you know. So natalism and analism. Oh, that's kind of tough to sort of swallow. It's about philosophy. I think people need to. Some people look towards a god or a religion to make yourself full or make yourself feel like they're.
That just made me think. That's something that we could put over here in this category is anti-LGBTQ. I mean, that's kind of in that category.
Somebody told me that what they meant by in the Bible was that it wasn't supposed to be originally wasn't supposed to be against homosexuality. It was supposed to be against pedophilia.
The Bible, I don't know. I'm not gonna go there. The Bible has passages in it like you can have sex with your daughter. I mean, that's pretty. If that's not pedophilia, that's certainly hebephilia. So I don't really know. Like,
yeah. But also, you have to realize it has been changed all through the centuries by kings and people. I mean, look at the what's his that king name? I forgot what his name was. There was a book named after him. Shoot. I think it was John. Not John Smith. No, that's the Mormon dude. Fucking bullshit. It was people in the medieval times who probably switched around the Bible to fit their lifestyle or fit their fake narrative, you know.
Well, we can put this philosophy to use. This chart, we can put it to work. So, Josh, how likely are you to criticize procreation? Are you less likely or more likely?
But yeah, that's the procreation. That's the thing is, I'm planning on not even having kids. So my philosophy is,
it's not whether or not you want kids. It's whether or not you think that other people should have the right to reproduce and how many
They should. If somebody
Yeah.
wants to have, 6 fucking kids and multiply, they
Oh,
should.
okay. So he's kind
That's their
of
choice.
like
Live in America.
right here. I think that's fair.
Personally, I might not want to have kids, but I mean, I might change my viewpoints long down the line. You heard about that case about the what's it, a guy who was suing his parents for taking births with him, right? Heard about that case?
Yeah,
Suing his own parents. Then after they were born. That is fucking. I'm sorry. I think that's a fucking troll. That has to be. I must do my own parents for me.
Well, kids have sued their own parents for a lot of reasons.
Oh, you're the one that was suing his parents for kicking them out of the house because he was living there to his 30s, and he had really long hair, and he didn't do anything besides just sit on his ass and play video games. Never clean anything up. It's kind of sad that actually had to hit news. So my question is, do you really think all people should procreate, or some people should procreate? If they're going to make lazy offspring, Hello?
I think that there's some people that shouldn't reproduce because of certain circumstances.
Well, it depends. If they're not financially collected to it, if they're not financially able to afford a baby, there's no point in having a baby if you can't afford it. I mean, I was brought up with just a single parent, and it sucked. It really, really fucking sucked living in the worst neighborhoods of my town, and right by next door to fucking crackheads, and next door to registered sex offenders, and my mom had to watch me like a hawk.
Well, let me explain the philosophy of the natalist argument. You have the anti-natalists, or the anti-natalists believe that everyone should stop procreating because life is filled with predominantly pain, and most of the things that we call positives are more neutral, and that the only end game is death and no remembrance. So we're talking about from a very...
Well, that's the thing is,
So they believe that life is pointless because it's just nothing but pain, and that all life should cease.
It's not damn pointless. There's some good things about life, and there's some bad things about life.
But they don't understand that. They only see pain, and they think that's all life is, and that therefore life should be eradicated because of it.
Well, they just need a dick wet. They just need a dick wet. That's what it is.
Well, they
I'm being cruel, am I? I mean, just.
Well, I think that falls into the category of hedonism, which sounds like something that they're against. They see any kind most kinds of pleasure is a form of hedonism or escapism, and not dealing with the actual reality.
They sound like a bunch of Mormons.
No,
they sound like a bunch of Catholics and Mormons.
The idea comes from atheism, or actually more nihilism, that everything is nothing and nothing is everything, that when you die, you don't retain any of the information, and that even if you...
There's nothing wrong with being a little nihilist.
And even still, humanity in general, or all life on the earth at some point, and this is factual, I mean... Like anybody that's into science or understands reality knows this. One day, some point in the future, the Earth will no longer be able to inhabit life, and at some point, it's theorized that the universe itself will not be able to sustain life because it's ever expanding, and it'll expand to the point where all the planets and suns become so far apart it will not be able to sustain life at all.
You know, I mean, for the anti-analyst, and I'm not saying that right. Okay, I want to ask them, have you ever seen the movie Saw? You guys seen the movie Saw? You know why he picked his victims? Because they took their life for granted, and they put them in a situation that they had to fight for their life. And guess what they chose? To fight for their life. Human beings has this natural urge to maintain and survive. Doesn't matter how suicidal you are, if you're kind of in a situation that's like, oh shit, I'm gonna die, you're gonna avoid that as much as you can. So anti-natalism is just a bunch of fucking horse crap. You know? I mean, there's lots of pain in the world. Life is cruel, and life fucking sucks. Life's a bitch. Wait till you marry one. But hey, there's some good pleasures in life, you know.
But hedonism is taking the pleasures of life and equating the pleasures of life with your actions and stuff like that.
Well, and not only that, I mean, you think about it. I mean, what do you think Robert Smith and the fucking queer things about? They think about love and compassion and being wanted and heartbreak and love. I mean, life throws you curveballs, man. But sometimes there's some good pleasures out of it.
But this is something that the anti-natalists don't understand. And that's what we're trying to get to. Like, why do they think this?
Oh, because I think they haven't really experienced life so much. I guarantee you, half of these, majority of these anti-natalists have no tattoos, never drunk a single liquor in their life, never got drunk, or never got laid. You know? And you don't even have to get laid to experience and enjoy life. I mean, plenty of people who never had sex who like driving motorcycles and bowling and playing video games, and they don't hide in their mom's basement and cry about, oh, woe is me. And I guarantee you, majority of these people are like incels. They blame society and blame feminism for everything. Part of it, yes, it is feminism.
Well, the anti-natalists that we talk to, they don't really bring up feminism really at all.
Not really. I don't look at this argument as in like pro or con, right or wrong. It's just the stance of which a person takes towards procreation.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, some people.
Well, how are they going to enforce it? They're going to enforce it by gunpoint?
This has nothing to do with like feminism or anything else. I don't think that these anti-natalists, I don't think that they're incels. I think that they're producing
a logical argument. It's a logical argument known as a syllogism.
Yeah.
Well, their argument is completely dumb. Not the fact it's completely dumb. How are they going to enforce it?
Well,
that's everybody not to have sex.
That is a good question. Is that how realistic is it to think that you're going to get an entire species of an animal to stop procreating without
Moreover, how are you going to reduce the population to a number to where you can eliminate it completely?
Is that a realistic objective or is that idealistic? I see that as more idealistic.
I think that's extremely idealistic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think realistically, I mean, you can't stop a whole species from having sex. That's insane. Unless you have to kill off the whole species. And promise me, there's so many humans out there that it's nearly impossible to kill all of us.
Yeah, there's like 7.5 billion people, almost 8 billion, and pretty much a lot of those human beings were born from just people procreating just one day without a condom and just like
even with a condom. But also my question is, you know how many animals are out there that has 7 billion people besides insects? 7 million people. You know,
Well, I
seven
would
billion people. There's no any other species that has that much.
I would also Edgy Intellect commented. He said, I don't see how you can be a nationalist without being an ethno-nationalist. Nations are ethnicities.
Yeah.
Not all of them. Well, I mean, there's a difference between nationalism and ethno-nationalism.
Every nation is basically an ethnicity because there are ethnic groups in every country.
Well, to a certain degree, yes, but in America, we're multiracial. We have Black Americans, we have Asian Americans, there's several types of.
But that doesn't matter to the ethno-nationalists that are white.
Ethno-nationalists only care about what your skin color is. That's just kind of dumb.
Personally,
that's kind of a lame argument. It's like, oh.
I really like what Friedrich Nietzsche said about nationalism. That basically, nationalism was just repackaged tribalism. It goes something along the lines of if you go against the herd or the tribe, you will be questioned and you will often be lonely, but no price is too high to pay for owning your own mind, your own self.
Fascism is a post industrial revolution tribalistic type of government. That's basically what fascism is.
Fascism is also silencing and corrupting and destroying oppositional power. You know, I mean, when you have nationalists like me say, "Oh, look, I'm for freedom of speech," even though I disagree with that speech. That's clearly I'm a person that I'm willing to have people who disagree with me in my viewpoint. They have every right to do what they want to. I'm very pro freedom of speech. Our Constitution in the United States speaks of it, you know. And I'm not to the point I want to silence everybody. Like if Kaepernick wants to fucking take a knee in the national anthem, he can go ahead and do that. I might not like it, but he has every right to do it.
That, you know? We're getting so derailed from the topic.
I know.
Let's get back to the original point.
Natalism.
Yeah, the original point. Yeah.
But I will say this that Chick Micken has this to say to you, Mr. Lothier, is that America was ethnically cleansed. Americans are a stateless nation. And he also says fascists have been fighting for freedom of speech for 80 years.
No, we don't know. Bullshit. Hitler was
and there's these memes about like fucking America, like you know, they have like the fucking blonde chicks with the frickin' Trump shirts and it says "Make America White Again," and then there's another caption with a Native American saying, "How can America be white when it didn't start out that way?"
Yeah. Well, my question is, how do you know how some of those people were like fucking trolls and stuff like that? You never know. Sometimes they could be, you know, just a bunch of. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the whole context of that whole meme.
But let's get back to the natalist
argument. And Edgy Intellect has a good commentary on that. He says that the anti-natalist e-filist types spooking around on this channel argue more with the utilitarian pleasure-pain calculus, which is also the driving force behind the happiness cult in today's society.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, have they ever heard of BDSM?
What is that?
Yeah, that's something that the humanist atheists have brought up, is that pain and pleasure are subjective, that they're not objectively defined.
And I don't think that these anti-natalists take into account of Schadenfreude or sadism.
Yeah. The thing with Friedrich Nietzsche is a lot of his philosophy was like, yeah, life sucks, it's a pain in the ass, but you can still have the will to live and realize the truth.
I wasn't talking about Friedrich Nietzsche. I was talking about Schadenfreude, which is German for like taking pleasure in someone else's misfortune.
Oh, you're talking about like sadomasochism, another kind of form of
sadism is something different. Sadism is where you're inflicting pain on somebody else for pleasure.
Yep. And so basically, it's more like social sadism, just enjoying causing pain onto other people. Those are like fucking psychopaths. I mean, I don't see how you can get off on that, but some people do. Shoot.
And edgy intellect is contributing to the political side, saying ethnicity can be any group that politically declares itself to be such. From prehistoric tribes to modern nation states, all nations are ethnicities, but not all ethnicities are nations.
Right.
Thank you.
Because the Kurds don't have their own nation.
But I don't like to think of this spectrum as in right or wrong, because each segment of this, the people who belong to those categories think that they are correct.
Because nobody ever believes that they're wrong.
That's true.
But I think we can.
I'll put your video evidence, but
Well, this is the thing that I find interesting, is that we can objectively say that if a species overpopulates, it disrupts the local ecosystem. But for some reason, certain groups of people out there like to think that when human beings do it on a global scale, it won't disrupt all kinds of local ecosystems.
Well, I think the reason why is we're more cognizant what we're doing. We learn not to build in certain areas because certain wildlife could be endangered. We learn how to adapt to the environments we're around. Not only that, we take care of animals when we catch them, and anything if they're hurt, we probably sedate them and treat them. And they probably wake up with a big old huge tag on the ear.
Well, we've been trying to, human beings have been trying to not only control animal population by reducing it when they become numerous, but also restoring populations of animals that are, in trouble as far as like they're dying out. And we are the only species that has the brain capacity to actually do that. You can't. That's not something you can expect out of any other species or any other biological organism that is known to us.
Yep.
We also have the capacity to completely destroy it at the same time. So I think that the center of the chart is probably the most rational to take because it provides a balance.
Hey, I got to get off here because they're calling for me. I'll talk to you guys later, okay?
All right.
All right.
See you later.
Josh, you have to hang up.
Yeah. Wow,
Ladies and gentlemen,
that went very well.
we have a turd in the punch bowl. We have a turd in the punch bowl.
I know.
But I mean, that's what I was trying to stray away from, is like trying to condemn any side, because you can't be objective and look at this kind of thing, like if you're not being objective if you're being judgmental,
No. No, but I mean, what I was saying is that there's people that, like there are like they can't say that there's no pleasure, because there are instances where pleasure and pain are blurred when you have like in like sadomasochism and in Schadenfreude, where you take pleasure in the misfortunes of others, And with sadomasochism, there's people that like pain because they find pleasure in it.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly does exist.
Ugh, I was worried Josh would come in the stream, and I knew when he was talking about other topics, I was like, oh fuck.
Yeah, I'm not trying to do the politics thing.
Me either. That's why I said this has nothing to do with feminism or being an incel or anything.
No, not really. I suppose there are some political aspects, like pro-LGBT or pro-abortion or anti-abortion. That kind of thing falls into that. Those things get politicized.
Yeah.
So the natalist argument itself could probably be politicized, but I'm just more trying to, get the spectrum of it. These are. I think this is a pretty good example, and this is why I'm saying that, like, I mean, I think the ephilists and the anti-natalists, I think, that they do have a point. Like, yes, one day the earth will stop existing, we'll all die, and we won't remember any of this, etc., etc. So this is all on an atheist sort of category. But then, you do have the atheist perspective of, like, bodily autonomy, and that, I mean, you can't predict when someone's born if they're going to enjoy life or hate life. I don't know how you could possibly do that.
No.
So, I mean, you're going to have people that are born and are like, I hate life, I'm depressed, I want to die. And you certainly do have atheists that are alive that are, they're like, I'm glad that I got the opportunity to experience existence itself, to be cognitively aware of my own existence.
Yeah.
And Chick Macon says MGTOW would be right there with anti-natalists. In his opinion, they're pretty much arguing for the same thing.
So you're saying that the Ethelists are fucking in cahoots with MGTOW?
I don't think that they are. I think there's probably some.
I don't think they are either.
I think there's probably some MGTOWs that probably have reproduced, and have. I don't think that they're necessarily against procreation, but I think that the path that they take ends up or leads to non-appropriation. So and that's the same with like homosexuality. It's like homosexuality doesn't necessarily lead to procreation, but that doesn't mean that it can't. Just because someone's homosexual doesn't mean that they're completely incapable of procreating.
Right.
And some do decide to procreate, through surrogacy or other means, I mean,
Because there are dudes that, breed like other chicks,
so I wonder, like, where do you think, in your opinion, would like the naturalist perspective be? I think it would probably be somewhere like I think it's really kind of part of the neutral natalist.
I think the natural point would be somewhere in the neutral. I think it would be maybe to the right, maybe a little bit to the right
Like maybe
of neutral natalism.
like maybe about here.
Yeah, I think so. Because if someone is a naturalist, of course they would probably be for natalism, but they wouldn't be completely, anti-natalist either.
No, well, I mean, like I said, the biological perspective on life is to eat, sleep, poop, pee, and reproduce. Survive and flourish.
Yeah.
I think both ends of the extreme fall in the realm of idealism.
And somewhere in the middle is like the actual reality.
And I can't say it's the idealism is negative or positive, although it would seem that anti-natalism or ephialism would be like sort of a negative. It would seem that way because you're talking about the obliteration of the human species or all life.
Yeah. The majority of humans are going to find that repulsive and evil.
To put it bluntly, yes. But I don't know. There has to be like a cap somewhere on natalism. So you can't be like super hardcore natalist, like just to procreate. That seems deeply problematic to me. So
Right.
I can't call it a pro. But it is idealism.
I'm an idealist to an extent, but I do have like some things that are like out of the realm of possibility.
Well, and that's the question that I'm asking. Is it in the realm of possibility? Is it how likely, how plausible is it to actually ask the entirety of life as we know it to desist from a procreation.
And you also have to take into account, like, how much more people can we reproduce until we run out of space on the planet? I mean, what happens then? Do we just stop?
Well, according to a lot of people in this category over here, in the theist perspective, that's just not a thing. But there's evidence that suggests otherwise. Like, I love it how you can bring up how a species of animal, something as small as, like, let's say, rats, can destroy a localized ecosystem. But when you talk about human beings, it's like all bets are off the table. Like, humans don't apply. And I find that curious. Like, why is that? And, of course, Chick Macon says, I believe we need to have as many white babies as possible as a reaction to cultural Marxism.
There is no cultural Marxism.
No. I mean, I think what he's calling cultural Marxism is not what that is. Like, I've read what cultural Marxism is, which was written by Antonio Gramsci. It doesn't mention anything about ethnicity whatsoever. It doesn't mention anything about equality. It doesn't mention anything about LGBT anything. It doesn't mention anything about feminism. It literally, all it is it's a sort of means of warfare of trying to infiltrate a government by pertaining to marginalized groups to make them feel like they're even more oppressed than they actually are, to incite rebellion against the government and ultimately incite a revolution. And Antonio Gramsci basically said in there that countries like the United States or European countries that have adopted what he called, like, basically pseudo communist agendas like socialism, like mixed economies, like capitalist and socialism, where you have social safety nets, is his fucking kryptonite. Because it's really hard to create a revolution when you have a social safety net to fall back on that keeps the people from revolting against the government.
Right.
I mean, that was written by the godfather of communism himself, Antonio Gramsci.
Well, I thought the godfather of communism was Karl Marx.
Well, I think a lot of communists consider him to be the father, even though there were notions and aspects and philosophies of communism in ancient China, like during the dynasty days, the dynasty wars. You can find it in the Art of War. One of the factions operated off of communism. They called it a land of benevolence, where all resources are distributed equally, and that is, the principle of communism.
Mm-hmm. And I think to an extent, like, with communism, like, you have the probably like hunter-gatherer societies were probably communist to an extent, because when you're killing an animal, of course you're not going to eat all of the meat yourself. You're going to share that,
No. To throw a bone to the anti-natalist crowd, like their thing would fix all of that.
Right.
It's like communism, fascism, democracies, republics, none of that would matter under their thing. And again, that's very nihilistic. That's very nihilistic.
The ethalists are just super nihilists.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, Edgy Intellect. He wrote in there, I'm not even a fan of critical theory. I'm a function. I don't know what that is. I've never seen that before. Focalitarian, I don't know. Marxist. Critical theory is way too steeped in bourgeoisie idealism to be taken seriously. He says Marxism is not about culture. And from what I read from Antonio Gramsci, that tends to be the case.
And he says Marxism is not about culture.
It's, according to Antonio Gramsci, it's not.
Right.
It has nothing to do with cultural stuff. Okay. So I'm hoping that an e-filist or an anti-natalist will look at this and give their 2 cents, because this is ultimately the problem that I see in it, is that there's a spectrum here, and it's not just, I mean, it seems like there's pros and cons to all of it. From, I mean, there's pros to pro-natalism and there's cons to pro-natalism. There's pros to anti-natalism and there's cons to anti-natalism. And then, but like you said, it's almost like neutral-natalist would almost seem to be like the most rational approach.
Mm-hmm.
Where those who, even though they are atheists, who don't mind living, can still choose to live life, and it still supports non-appropriation and appropriation simultaneously. I mean, I consider that a win-win. But they want the whole, they want the whole thing. They want it all. No one should appropriate. No babies. No life. And then you have, people like Final Fantasy telling me that that at least the Christians have a place to go, or some of the theists have a place to go with it. And it's like, but they're on the complete opposite end. They're, make babies, nonstop. I mean, like, look at Catholic families in the early years. It's just like you couldn't stop them from procreating because the Catholic Church had forbidden any kind of contraceptive. They believed in a very strict interpretation of the Bible, that were even like a single drop of semen might possibly even be considered an abortion.
Yeah. It explains why there's a lot of Italian families that are very large.
Well, and this whole anti-contraceptive thing is part of like a big problem that's been over in Africa. The parts that have been seen over by the Catholic Church is that you have this rampant spread
and the ones that from America go on missionaries to over there.
But I mean, you have a rampant spread of
Yeah.
HIV and rampant, ever-growing population, and I think it wasn't just until like in the past decade that the Pope said that they could start using contraceptives. So I don't know. I guess that would be a good question for the anti-natalists is, do you think sexual activity is okay for the sake of sexual activity but not for procreation?
I think they would be against sex altogether.
That's depressing. I mean, I don't know what else to say to that. It's just like I can't imagine that.
No, I can't either.
So do you think maybe that we go back to so like I wonder if they would be in support of this. Asexuality. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, where would asexuality be on the scale?
I put it at anti-natalist.
Oh. Well, I mean, asexual people, they don't see sex as something, bonding worthy. I think a lot of them see sex as just something to cause reproduction or something like that. I don't think that they view sex as a pleasurable and bonding experience because they don't have any romantic feelings for anyone.
I think asexuals do feel romantic feelings, but they're just not sexually inclined. So they're not going to reproduce, and that plays into, I don't know, I'd say they're definitely pro. Why wouldn't they be pro?
Well, there's some asexual people that I think do want children, but that normally when they talk about like, having a partner or something like that, then they say that they have no interest in that.
There we go. So maybe asexuality itself goes somewhere here towards the center.
Yeah, I think so too.
And thank you for that edgy intellect. I will look into, I don't know how to say his last name, Foucault, Michael Foucault. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's French.
I think it's Foucault or something like that. I'm not sure.
I don't know. I bet you Google knows.
But I mean, yeah, there is a difference between asexuality and aromanticism.
So are the anti-natalists asexual, aromantic? Or do they have those and just not act on it because they perceive sex as hedonism?
Well, if they view sex as hedonistic, their goal is to avoid anything pleasurable or or see pleasure in anything. So they probably think that sex is not pleasurable, but they probably think that sex brings pain. Probably. They probably have sexual feelings. They just probably just don't act on them.
Or if they do, very, very careful as not to reproduce. Probably deeply pro-abortion.
Yeah.
And this right here is an example of the difference between what Final Fantasy does, and he doesn't ask questions to me what my stances are and whatnot like that. I'm actually asking questions I don't know. You know, I don't know what their stance on these things is. Like, what is the anti-natalist stance on these type of reproductive behaviors?
Mm-hmm.
These are questions I have. I don't have the answers to them.
Like what does an ethicist, how do they view contraceptives, and how do these people view like oh, what was I gonna say? I was going to say how they view abortion. They'd probably be for abortion. They would be against the anti-abortion laws.
You would think, but these are just assumptions.
Yeah.
Jake Megan says it's an interesting graph, and we should have it posted on Google when we're done. I think we can arrange that.
Yeah.
The natalist spectrum.
Maybe we should get fucking Wikipedia to have this in their fucking anti-natalist or natalism article or whatever.
Because I mean, it's a like anti-natalism is a fairly new philosophy. I think that was it was brought up by Benatar, and I don't know that anybody's mapped this out yet. So this might be a new creation in the philosophy of it.
Mm-hmm. Did you put anti-abortion in anti-natalist category?
No.
Or
Anti-abortion is in pro-natalism.
Oh, it's pro-natalism? Oh. Yeah, I was thinking pro-abortion. I don't know why I said anti-abortion.
So, I mean, we've asked a lot of questions about the stances on sexual behavior from the anti-natalist's perspective, and that to me is a glaring difference in philosophical argument between what Final Fantasy does and what I do. Is I'm actually asking these questions instead of trying to make assumptions, and that's what I wish he would realize when he makes those assumptions, that's a fallacy called begging the question. It's also known as, circular reasoning.
Yeah. Because he was talking to me about questioning my stances and how I see things.
Well, I think that's a start then. That's a start to actually start asking questions and understanding the actual philosophy behind it. You know, what
Like, one of the questions I would ask them, like, what are your views on contraceptives?
yeah, you would think that that would fall into their category. Are they completely anti-sex, or is sex okay as long as procreation is not upheld? You know, how do they differentiate? Like with especially with the ephilism, how do they differentiate their philosophy from the idea of like genocide? That it's not the only difference that I see is that it's not indicative to a specific group of people, but all people.
But I see their philosophy as wanting to commit genocide, except on an extreme scale, where you're not targeting one specific group of people, but the whole population as a whole.
Like instead of genocide, it's like genetic eradication.
Yeah, I mean,
like ultimate.
It's not genocide because it's not a group of people. It would be uh uh it would be humanicide, because there are different types of murder. Humanicide would be the extermination of the human species.
So it's like a speciation eradication. What would you call that? Like specieside?
I can look that up.
You know, let's see if there's an actual definition for the eradication of a species.
Well, I can go to Wiktionary and find something. Find a term.
Yeah, Chick Micken asks if they want to exterminate the animals too. I think their end goal is to exterminate life itself, so that there is no observer to life.
I found the term on Wiktionary. Humanicide, the destruction of the human race. And the second definition is a substance, person, or group that exterminates people.
Yep.
It just says people, not a specific group of people.
That definitely falls under their category. Yeah, it does apply to animals too, because that's still an observer to reality, to experience pain for no ultimate gain other than to die in the end. And that's what they want to eradicate. That there's no point in existence. I don't understand why they don't see that as nihilism. That's very nihilistic.
Yeah.
Because I did see a live stream with him Minham where he was talking to a bunch of atheists that were arguing with him, and they were arguing that, you know, people should have the right to bodily autonomy, and he just, in Minham, just flipped the fuck out. I mean, just went total ape shit on these guys, calling them nihilists. And what he was really trying to say is that they were moralist nihilists because they, from his perspective, they did not have any moral or ethical principle to the suffering that comes with life. So that if you are neutral on natalism in any way, shape, or form, or pro-natalist, then then you're supporting pain. And I suppose they rationalize the theist perspective is that, well, the reason why they get away with their argument is because they think that there's this paradise that awaits beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit, I'm gonna sneeze, I think. Oh, there we go. But I have also seen in Mendham and other anti-natalists talk staunchly against like addiction because like not necessarily hedonism, but like escapism. Like they seem to be against escapism. It's just an addiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So any form of pleasure, therefore, must be some kind of addiction because of the chemicals that are activated in the brain.
Yeah, the dopamine.
Dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, norepinephrine.
Well, since I like believe in like reincarnation and stuff, it's like with that, to the anti-natalists, their perspective of like trying to murder the entire human race would be impossible because if one person dies, another person gets reincarnated. So according to that perspective.
On that perspective, on the reincarnation, it would just basically like put everybody in limbo.
Yeah.
Unless there's other life out there that we are unaware of that we could possibly be reincarnated as. I don't know.
Yeah. I was reading articles about like, of like different civilizations in our own galaxy, and it said that there's probably around like maybe like 100 or something like that dead civilizations in our own galaxy alone, something like that. I forget the number, but I think it's somewhere around there. And that's that's just speculation because we don't know if there's life out there.
It seems like a while back there was this mathematical calculation that they did to look at the birthing capacity predominantly of females because males can endlessly just produce sperm cells. But so based on female fertility, it's like what is the potential amount of life that could be had versus what actually ends up? And it's like if you do that kind of mathematical equation, what you find is that there's a lot more life that isn't given than is.
They say that the female can reproduce up until she's like 35 or 36, and in between when she's like fertile to when she's like 35, 36, they could have like around maybe like 10 to 15 kids at most.
So the actual potential for human reproduction is very minuscule in what is actually done. And that was the point, is that you're more likely to not exist than you are to exist. That was the point. There's much more life that doesn't exist than does.
Yeah, and I think that applies to like every other animal species on the planet.
Oh, I know about that chick, Micken. He's bringing up how in the past, like, people would have like household families. Like he says 8, but sometimes they would go all the way up to like 15. And so a lot of the times, like, you go back in like the 1700s, they wouldn't even name their kids until they were about 5 years old because the mortality rate was so high. And that comes in part of, like, saying this is like John's son or something like that is because the kid actually didn't have a name, and they wouldn't give that until they were like 5 years old because, like, there was a good chance they'd just probably die.
Yeah, because back then people saw disease everywhere.
Well, I mean, you die from a cut. If it became
Yeah.
infected, you could die from staph infection.
Hmm.
We didn't have nearly the medical advancements that we have today, so people live a lot longer and healthier lives.
Yeah.
You could almost make the point that it's unnatural for people to live to like 80, 90 years old.
Yeah. Because for the longest time in human history, the most people really lived was like in their 60s, and that was pretty much the end of their life.
Well, and you even, like, we talk about like the ancient Greek and Roman Empire, and it's like, I mean, at 30 years old, you were considered old. Like, you were an old person
Yeah,
at that
but
point.
there are instances of like famous people in history living like long lives. Like Democritus lived at 90. Plato was like around 80. Um, uh, Socrates was probably like 70 or 72, I think. Um,
What was the
uh,
average lifespan back then, though?
the average lifespan was probably like around 50 to 60 years old, I think. Maybe 45.
Not very long.
Yeah. Compared to me and you're, according to that scale, you're pretty much an old man.
I am. I would be considered an old man in their society.
Yeah. Whereas I would still probably be viewed like, young, but people my age would be like in the symposium discussing philosophy or whatever.
It's a shame that is something that is not, highly monetizable in today's society.
No.
And it used to be, something that was well respected
Yeah.
in
Like
academics.
the ones who did it for profit though were the sophists. The sophist was basically a teacher you went to pay to get philosophical discourse from.
Well, and that takes place even with think tanks today. They become immersed into a particular ideology because it becomes about the money rather than being objective.
Hmm.
And that's unfortunate, but that does happen. Like, actually, there was one that was called out on it that I did a video in the past where she did this whole spiel of like fake it till you make it, and I was like, that's bullshit. I mean, that
I've
does.
I've heard that like a lot, like fake it till you make it
Well,
bullshit.
she was I think she was a social psychologist, and she did a TED talk about it, and she she went on a whole bunch of TED Talks and went to all these different talks at college campuses and whatnot, and she kept, going on and on about this whole fake it till you make it business, and she was actually like looking further into the psychology of like self-esteem and whatnot, and she got so involved in doing these talks to make money, she had completely lost track of her original objective. And actually, her whole fake it till you make it thing, when it was peer reviewed, was declined because it could not be replicated. And it's funny because I called her out a long time ago. I just watched the TED Talk and made a video about it. I was like, this is bullshit. This is pseudo-intellectualism, pseudoscience. It's garbage. And then it's funny because like a couple of years after I make that video, they peer reviewed her study and said, this is not replicated. You can't replicate this. We come up with different results, Not everyone who fakes it makes it.
No.
So it doesn't work.
No.
And Chick Miggins says that we are talking about people who lived in advanced civilizations. I think is what he's referring to, the advanced civilization of the Greek and the Roman Empire, of living to like 60, 70 years old. The gentry folk of that time.
Well, no, I mean, at the time period of when Plato, Democritus, and Socrates lived, that was during the time of Athenian democracy and the barter and trade system of Sparta. And Sparta and Athens really hated each other. But, and also during that time was like the Roman Republic. It wasn't an empire yet.
And, I think if you were to propose something like anti-natalism to people back then, they'd probably see it very, very absurd, because a lot of them were into the whole naturalistic element, but then, you did have the...
Yeah, like I said to Final Fantasy, like a lot of the ancient Greek philosophies, they would see like your stance on like being negative and seeing life as pain. That's on you. That's not life itself, because your negative emotions are the cause of why you see suffering and why you see life being nothing but pain. It's because of your negative emotions.
How does that old adage go? Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, pretty much. But I would also argue that a lot of the polytheists, like the mainstream polytheists at the time, they would probably be strongly against anti-natalism, because a lot of them were probably like, yeah, reproduce. It's just a natural order of things.
It's just a part of life. Again, that's the naturalistic approach. There was another form of philosophy, though. There was the naturalists, and then there was like, not necessarily spiritual, but I don't want to say idealism either. But I don't remember what it was called. Wasn't Plato one?
What?
Plato wasn't a naturalist, was he?
No, he was. His philosophy is mysticism.
That's what I was looking for. So it was about mysticism.
I used to be a Platonist a while ago. I still have his book of his complete works. I mean, there are some things in there that I still kind of agree with, but the majority of it, like, I don't really believe in it really anymore. I mean, Plato is one of the founding pillars of philosophy, of Western philosophy anyway.
All right, so Chick Micken says it wasn't mysticism. What was it then?
It was mysticism because it differed from the philosophies of the pre-Socratics, which were naturalist, and and it differed from Aristotle, which Aristotle was a student, because Aristotle was a naturalist, and because he dealt with Earth's properties. And at the end of Aristotle's life, when he was exiled to Lesbos, he was probably one of the first biologists because he was dissecting frogs and looking at their anatomy.
Yeah, that we see there's an interesting dynamic in that in creative writing. Like in the Victorian age, the Goths were called the Gothic Romantics. They were into romanticism, idealism. And then there was another version of that, and they were the naturalists. So it was like the naturalists were about escaping from like
Yeah.
industry and going back to the roots of human nature.
hmm And with ancient Greek philosophy in particular, the mysticist philosophies, they originate from the Athens region, and the natural philosophies like the pre-Socratic, the physicist, and um I don't know if Aristotle was born in in Athens region or not, but I think he was. But the naturalist philosophies that came before Plato, they originate from Ionia, which is like the easternmost part of Turkey.
All right, so then there's two comments that Chick Micken says metaphysics versus materialism. Both sides think their beliefs are true. Edgy intellect says self-esteem is vastly overrated nowadays anyway. And that's
Okay. That's what's he saying?
well, that's kind of what I see as like existentialism. Like, I mean, I kind of agree with that. Like, I mean, there actually was this video that Meta Sage made a while ago where he compared emotions that people have, things like hope,
hmm
dreams, idealisms, as being nothing more than cosmetics that we carry in our emotional baggage. And then he poses a question: why do humans feel the need to carry so much luggage around with them, so much emotional luggage? What purpose does it serve? What purpose does hope serve? What does it really give us? A false sense of security? That's not very helpful.
No. But then you have like the hedonist philosophies, like the Cyrenaics of Cyrene and Libya. Like that lasted pretty much a century, and then that was replaced with Epicureanism, and that was like hedonistic too.
Oh, and then Jake Micken says Plato wasn't inventing myths. He was explaining the world as it is in his view. The world of forms, being versus becoming, etc.
Well, and Plato kind of invented the myth of Atlantis as an allegory for the ideal state. Like in that, he praises Athens as being the victor of in a war with Atlantis. And then afterwards, after when Athens defeated them, Atlantis sunk beneath the ocean.
So a lot of this seems to be on a spectrum. Like, we have the naturalists versus the mysticism. It's almost like saying the rationality or realism versus idealism.
Mm-hmm. And the Pyrrhonists were kind of pure naturalists, because they saw everything that was not non-evident as it doesn't matter. If it's evident, then it's worthy of knowing, or something like that. I forget, but
That's like the precursor to nihilism.
it pretty much is. That's why I say that Pyrrhonism is pretty much ancient nihilism, even though the Pyrrhonists still believe that you should find meaning in life.
Well, and
Because they were still kind of they were kind of hedonists, like they had the same goal of the Epicureans, where they're trying to find pleasure in order, like they were trying to find hedonistic pleasures in order to be happy and to. What?
You gonna help me and Danny?
For what?
Need help me bringing some groceries for Danny.
I'll be right back.
all right.
How long are you gonna live stream?
Well, I was going to wrap this up here by just going over the questions to the anti-natalists again. Is that, like, what is their stances on, like, the, like, asexuality, LGBTQ, abortion, contraceptives, sexual activity in general, sexual behavior in general. How do they coincide or differentiate themselves between, like, genocide and stuff like that? How do they perceive these other philosophies in accordance with their own? Naturalistic versus idealistic, that kind of thing. These are unexplained questions. These, that I don't have the answers to them. I don't know if I would get the answer from somebody like Final Fantasy. I would think, and Mendham would be able to answer questions like that, because that's his main angle, is anti-natalism. And
yeah, I'll be right back.
So, like, how do you rationalize that you're not nihilistic in that sense? Is that, everything is nothing, nothing is everything, therefore fuck it? I mean, how is that antithetical to nihilism? So, I mean, I think these are good questions. And I don't think that they're inappropriate. I don't think they're rude. I don't think, they're stupid, as Final Fantasy thinks everything that challenges his idea is. I think it's a pretty reasonable question to ask. I think all of them are. And I think we got a good chart. Do you have anything else to add? I think he left.
I'm back.
Oh, okay. Edgy Intellect says mandatory self-esteem is self-contradictory. How self-confident are you truly when you're just following the norm? Still not really. Not really. I feel more confident just being myself. As weird or strange as people may find that to be. But I think the questions posed to the anti-natalists I think they're good ones, and like I said, I don't think you're going to get good answers from people like Final Fantasy. I think he argues just out of anger. I think he's frustrated because his views are being challenged. I don't think
But
he.
that's what I said in my comment, about like how according to ancient Greek philosophy, he sees the world nothing but pain because he is an angry man. That's basically how the ancients would view him.
Yeah, I mean he's. I can't say that he's committing ad hominems. It's just insult after insult after insult after insult after insult, and it's like, and then he does do the fallacies of like the begging the question, making the assumption to support, like he assumes my position to support his conclusion, and it's like no, that's not my stance. And so that's what I'm saying. I think these are reasonable questions, is where they stand on these other philosophical principles. And I think those are questions I think and Minham could answer if he wanted to, but in all honesty, I don't think he would. I don't think he would take the questions seriously, and that's unfortunate. And Chick Mickens said, as a reactionary, I can tell you he's a reactionary. He kind of is.
Which one is he talking about?
Final Fantasy. I don't know if he knows much about it, Minham. But it blows my mind, when I see young folks taking in Minham's word and then talking about the pain of losing a loved one, like a mom or something like that, and I want to commit suicide, and it's like, then they say that in Minham is pro-suicide, where I have literally seen in Minham say that is not the solution because it still gives way for procreation and for life to exist somewhere else. So I've literally seen in Minham says no, suicide is not a solution. It doesn't fix the problem of procreation. But the fact that people are listening to his ideas and coming to the conclusion that, I've had some rough spots in life, therefore, it's like, you feel that way now, just wait, maybe you won't feel that way in the future.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Final Fantasy's comments to me. Like I told him that humanity wants creation and progress, not destruction. And then he's like, progress in what context?
Well, ultimately, it's just like Carl Sagan said, we can do science, and with it, we can improve our lives. Try to make life more enjoyable with technological advancements. That's the humanist atheist approach, is that we strive towards doing that.
I'll be right back.
I'm gonna end the stream. So I think it was a good one. It was nice seeing all of you turn out. Good to see you. Have a lovely day. And I don't know what else to say other than I'm out. Infinity shot. All right, take care, everyone. Thanks for joining.